Can you plow with a half ton? Now, it is no question that for years, guys have had this continuous argument over whether you can plow with a half ton truck or not. And there's been arguments for and against. Personally, as you guys know, I do plow with a half ton truck. And I'll kind of explain my reason why I went that route for my first year plowing. We've been doing snow removal for about 4 years now, with mainly snow blowers, and then now we're just kind of getting into bigger things with the plow truck since we purchased our F150. So our 2018 F150 is equipped with the heavy-duty payload and the snowplow prep package. And when I bought the truck, it also came with a 7.5-foot Meyer plow. So this truck, right from the get-go, based off the factory options, as well as the plow on the front, is set up to plow. But the question still remains, can you plow with a half ton? And I feel the answer is generally yes, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. There's a couple pros and cons to it. And then there's also a few things that you need to consider as well when you're looking into plowing with your half ton. So first, let's go over a couple of the pros, some of the things that I've noticed this year plowing. And we're about halfway through our season now. We got 4 or 5 storms under our belt. Been taking care of a parking lot, which has given me a little bit of extra time in the seat as well. So a couple of things I noticed right off the rip, especially with my configuration truck, is that it is a small truck. Our 2018 F150 is a regular cab long box truck, so it is much smaller than most of your 3/4 ton and 1 ton trucks. So you can kind of whip around a little bit easier. The blind spots aren't as big, and you can see better overall. And I'm used to driving bigger vehicles, but it certainly makes it a heck of a lot easier navigating with a small vehicle, learning how to plow and stuff. So that is one of the big things I noticed right off the hop, as well as just when I was looking to buy the trucks, looking at price and seeing similar trucks with similar options. There was another truck that I was looking at that had a plow and a salter, and it was a 2500, but it was much older and in much worse shape for the same price. So these trucks are much cheaper, like considerably, like $10,000-$15,000 cheaper to get a full plow setup between the truck and the plow together. And now this will kind of carry over into our first kind of con, is that you're very limited on your options for equipment. Now, the equipment that is available is significantly cheaper. For a plow, you're looking between $5,000 and $12,000 for a half-ton plow, whereas a heavy duty, you're looking more like $8,000 to $15,000 for a heavy duty plow. Now that's all Canadian and mainly based off our local Boss dealer here. So there is a pretty big price gap, but also there is a pretty big capability gap in that as well. The other thing to consider with that availability is the salters if you're getting into salting. Mainly on a half ton, you're going to run a tailgate salter. The biggest you can get into it is about a 1 yard bed salter. And I might venture down that road eventually with this truck as we grow the fleet and have those options and capabilities. But for right now, we do run that TGS 600. It works great. Again, going back to the size of the truck, you're able to reach over the bed to grab the bag of salt to put it in the salter. You don't even have to get up in the bed half the time. So that just makes life a little bit easier if you are using a tailgate salter. And it is, there's some downsides to that as well. But generally, with the limited options for equipment compared to the pricing, it kind of evens out for sure. Now, one last big thing I've noticed plowing this year with this truck is how fuel efficient it is. Now, you're going to say, oh, it's a V8 and this and that, and it's going to burn a ton of fuel. It does burn a lot of fuel. It is not fuel efficient. It's no Prius or your Toyota Corolla. But when I'm looking at the burn times and how much I can do within one tank of fuel, I can get about 15 to 17 hours out of my 5-liter on one tank of fuel, right? So you're talking, it's a 136-liter tank. You're talking between 100 and 110 liters burned. Plowing with a bed load of salt, about 1,000 pounds in the bed and the salter. Running lights and heat and windows. So these trucks are very fuel efficient for what they can offer. Compared to you step up into a heavy duty truck, and to get comparable fuel consumption, you're going to have to get a diesel, which is going to be about, you know, a $10,000 option to get comparable or better fuel consumption. Or and then the gas option is going to burn even more, because now you're getting into 6.4 liter, 6.8 liter, 7.3 liter V8s. And they're going to be much less efficient. Although, again, going back to our first con of the half tons, how limited the options are for those plows. With those bigger trucks, you can get bigger plows and push more snow. So that is one thing to weigh out there, you know, that it might be worth getting a bigger truck if you have more snow to push. That's all good and dandy. And so far, I really enjoy plowing with an F-150. I think the way that truck is spec'd is perfect for our operation. We're able to haul big, plow snow, do it all, and it's still in a very compact size compared to a heavy-duty counterpart. But with all that comes a lot of cons. Or not a lot of cons, but a few big cons. Now, considering that these are lighter-duty trucks, you know, you are going to be beating on them the same as you would a heavy-duty truck, but the wear is going to be a lot higher because those components aren't as heavy-duty. You know, so your front suspension components, frame, you know, it's going to take a bit more of a beating compared to a heavy-duty truck, which is more utilitarian in that sense, as well as, you know, with the heavy-duty parts, you get more weight of the truck, so you're able to, with a heavier truck, you're able to push more snow. So these half tons now come in right around 5,000 pounds. Especially these aluminum body Fords, they sit right around that 5,000 to 6,000 pound range. Whereas your heavy duty trucks start at about 7,000. So you're gonna get a lot more pushing power with a heavy duty truck compared to a half ton, because you have more momentum and weight going into your piles and stuff. So you're gonna get a lot more pushing power with that compared to a half ton, and more traction too off the gate before you start adding stuff like ballast and your plow on. The final thing with all this is that the half tons, especially depending on your configuration of truck, whether you have a crew cab or a regular cab, you know, long or short box, what gear ratio you have, do you have the heavy duty springs, do you have, you know, whatever, they do have very limited payload. So my truck, the way it is optioned, it is at 2,500 pounds payload, and that all includes, in your payload is included your plow, the weight of your crew, your salt, and your salter. So you have to consider that if you're putting your plow on, which in my case it's a Meyer 7.5 foot Lot Pro, that weighs about 800 pounds. So immediately right off the top, I'm down to, so we started at 2,500, I'm down to 1,700 pounds of payload. Then you got to put your 1,000 pounds of salt in, right? Minimum, to counteract the plow, just to level out the truck again. So now you're at, you know, 700 pounds of payload left. So with these trucks, you're really kind of pushing them to their max. plowing, which is okay if you're working within the limits, but can also be a little bit more daunting. And then again, going back to those lighter duty components, more wear and tear. Between all these pros and cons, there's quite a few things to consider, from how your truck is configured, like I've already mentioned. Does it have a V8? Is it a crew cab? Is it a regular cab? Short bed, long bed? Are you plowing with, even just what manufacturing you're plowing with? I know the Dodge trucks, or the Rams, sorry, they have coil spring suspension all around. They aren't able to handle the weight as well as compared to the Fords or the Chevys with the leaf springs in the rear. So some of those configuration options you really have to consider. And within that, especially on the newer trucks, you have to consider, do you have the plow package? For a couple different reasons. With the plow package, you do get a bigger alternator. You get, some components that are more plow rated, heavier duty front springs, as well as your warranty. If you have a truck with the plow package, whether or not it is a heavy duty or a half ton, you must have the snow plow prep package before you put the plow on, if you want to keep your warranty. Putting a plow on a truck without a snow plow prep package will void your warranty completely. So that is just a big heads up. If you did want to do that, you have to be careful what options your truck does have. Another thing to consider is how much plowing you're doing. And I've kind of touched on this before. Like if you're plowing bigger lots, getting a heavy duty truck with a, say, 8 to 10 foot plow, Boss EXT, or a snow power plow, or any of those extendable, the Western wideouts, or the XLS style plows, that might be more efficient for you, or a 9.5 foot V plow or 8.5 foot V plow, compared to the options, which are pretty much only limited up to 7.5 feet on the light duty trucks, just for that weight again, as well as how much snow you're pushing. Varies a lot, and the strain on the truck. Final thing to consider, which is not necessarily a pro or a con, but more rather you would get a heavy duty or a light duty, is how much salting you're doing. And this goes for sand too. If you're doing a lot of salting and sanding, you might need a V-box style spreader or a drop-in spreader in the bed of your truck. There aren't as many options with light duty trucks versus the heavy duties. The heavy duties, you can get up to a 2-yard salter, and especially if you have a dually, you could almost get a 2.5 or 3-yard salter, versus the half ton, you're limited to a 1-yard salter, and even then you're pushing those limits again. Like I said, your payload capacity with a full V-box would be maxed out. Alright guys, so just a quick video today, just to kind of wrap up and kind of solve the myth a little bit of whether or not you can plow with a half-ton truck or not. I personally think you can, given the right operator and the right setup. Now, generally moving forward, I will be looking to upgrade into heavier duty trucks for my plow trucks, as well as getting into other equipment, such as skid loaders and payloaders for plowing, and tractors, as they're more equipped for that harsh environment, in my opinion, and more versatile as well. But that being said, starting out, if you have a half-ton truck, you most certainly can plow with it, especially if you're in an area that doesn't get a lot of snow. So, yes, you can plow with a half-ton. Do I recommend it? If your truck is properly equipped and you, as an operator, know what you're doing. And that goes to say with any plow truck, is that you have to be very aware of what you're doing, but especially if you're getting into a lighter duty truck. Those components are far more, are much lighter and more likely to break. So, anyway, that's it for today's video, guys. Really appreciate all the support lately. If you have any questions, drop a comment down below. I'd love to discuss further about this topic and whether or not you can plow with a half ton, or if you must get at least a 3/4 ton. And yeah, keep killing it. Thank you. Here's to 2024. That's going to be unbelievable and better than ever. So.